Okay, looks like it's being recorded. So let's get started. This is our now or later, as we're calling it, procrastination peer advising crash course. So this is, I feel like, an advertiser. This is brought to you by our Start Peer Advisors, and we have other crash courses that are offered throughout the semester that include things like self-esteem. Career services is doing one with our peer advisor, Denise. I know that's going to be a very useful one. Online learning. We also have a YouTube channel where all of these recordings are uploaded to, so feel free to check those out. And we hope that you find these crash courses as useful as we do. So let's get into it. So this crash course is obviously about procrastination. So the main goal of this crash course is to answer the question, what are some helpful ways that you can overcome procrastination? Everybody, I feel, procrastinates at least a little bit in life because there are things that we all have to do that we don't always want to do. So procrastination is a very common thing, but if you don't find healthy ways to overcome it, it can definitely become too much. So let's get to some tips and tricks, and then we will end with some resources. Okay, so one important thing is setting reasonable deadlines for yourself. And actually, as I say this, I'm going to pause and just say that if Jesse or Ali, if either of you want to interject or have a question or comment or anything, please feel free. And I'll stop after every slide too, just to pause if that is the case, but feel free to interject. So setting reasonable deadlines is very important. If you know that you work full-time, you're working 40 hours a week, you know it's not reasonable to be finished with everything on the same day as it relates to school. So plan accordingly. If you've got 10 assignments due and you work 8 hours a day, then telling yourself, it's okay, I'll just finish it all, the day it's due, Saturday, when I don't work. That might seem, appealing in a certain sense, but be reasonable with yourself. You'll also want to be organized, and that means keeping some kind of easily accessible and understandable planner that kind of details your upcoming assignments and other things that you might have to do. Additionally, when planning goals, like I said, you have to be realistic with yourself. So reasonable and realistic might sound the same, but in my head, I don't think they are. I think reasonable relates to sort of a more mental, emotional aspect of it. Don't overload yourself. Treat yourself kindly when it comes to your work. You don't have to do it all at once. As long as you are meeting your goals and hitting your deadlines, that's all that matters. So be easy with yourself. When it comes to realistic, that's where it relates to sort of the external factors that contribute to your procrastination. So be real. Like I said, if you work all day, every day, consciously think of ways to work around it, but be reasonable, you know? Um, Understand what you can't do, and that will help you build on what you can do. So when I say that, I don't mean focus on your inabilities, but just acknowledge them so that you can build on your abilities, if that makes sense. And then obviously eliminating distractions is a huge thing. So put your phone on silent, put it across the room if you have to, but make sure that your distractions, and usually you can tell what is distracting to you. I personally, my phone gets in the way of so much of the work that I want to do. So typically I put it on vibrate, and then I put it on my bed or somewhere that I'm not actively looking at, so that if it goes off, I won't feel compelled to look at it or answer it or whatever. Um, if you don't know what distracts you, that's something to think about. Really take some time to reflect on yourself, your own habits, and once you're able to figure out what distracts you, you can more easily figure out how to get rid of those distractions, even if only temporarily. Anything to say with any of
Yeah,
that?
I was going to chime in real quick.
Yeah,
I was kind of curious, Jesse, have you tried any of these things, or what's been your experience like in attempting to overcome procrastination so far?
Actually, I've been doing exactly what he said. Like not too long ago before this Zoom call started, I actually was taking notes for one of my classes and I did put my phone on vibrate and I threw it across the room to hopefully like deter me from constantly picking it up and looking at it, you know. And also, I like kind of plan out what I want to do that day to kind of keep me on track so that way hopefully I can accomplish those things accordingly.
Awesome. Yeah. And what I'm hearing from you a little bit, there's like the short term procrastinating and the long term procrastinating. The short term, it sounds like, is a little bit of those distractions, the phone, or if you love YouTube or whatever that might be. But then long term, like if your plan, because you have a plan, is to procrastinate, then that's going to sabotage you as well. So I really like that two-pronged approach. You're kind of trying both things.
yeah, that is great. Great contributions. Thank you both for that. I think um, that is really something we try and do with the packs when we get students is, you know, not just listen to me spout off, presentation, but I really like that this is relatable and something that you're actually doing. Um, so as we continue, let's see how much more of this you have done, and hopefully we can provide you with some things you haven't done that you might consider trying. Okay, so being comfortable. You will also want to be comfortable because you don't want to be uncomfortable studying or doing work because then it makes you not want to do it. So, like, don't worry about studying while you're laying in bed or you're snacking, but at the same time, make sure that your comfort doesn't become another distraction. So, there is definitely a fine line between comfort being, a hindrance and being something that helps you. So, really take that into consideration. For example, I personally, whenever I have like a reading to do for a class, I'll lay down and do it. I think that's something I can do. But like I wouldn't write an essay laying in bed because that is something that requires like more action on my part, physically and mentally. So sort of categorize things for yourself, see what works, see what doesn't work, and you know, reflect on yourself at the same time. Secondly, do things little by little. So if you have to read a 60-page article, read 5 pages at a time and then take a break or something like that. Set smaller goals, break it up so that you won't be deterred from doing it in the first place because you're not going to want to sit there and read the whole thing all at once. I had an article assigned to me. I don't consider it an article because it was 50 pages. So that is like a small book to me. Like it was so much to read. And when I saw how many pages it was, I thought to myself, I do not want to do this. And then I thought, okay, I know I can, but just not all at once. So I broke it up. I did 5 pages at a time. I'm not a quick reader. So 5 pages takes me a minute to read. So I took 5 pages at a time and I did it all in a day. So it took, you know, increments of time throughout the entire day to do it. But I felt comfortable while I was doing it. You know, I laid in bed for some of it. Sometimes I didn't. I switched things up. But, that goes into the next part about taking breaks. It's okay to take breaks sometimes. Your mind needs to relax. And studies actually do show that taking breaks helps you retain more information. I'm sure as students, we have all heard that, cramming the night before a test doesn't help. Now, if you haven't studied at all before the test, cramming the night before would probably help if you haven't studied it all before. But if your goal is to actually learn the material for the sake of learning and not for passing the exam, then allow yourself to take breaks. Do it gradually. Don't cram. You'll actually remember more and it'll be more fun. You know, I am not the kind of person to pull all nighters studying for an exam because that just doesn't sound fun to me. So I'd rather study for, a half hour every day for, the 3 or 4 days preceding an exam than stay up all night. That just seems more easy, or easier. So, last thing, this is something that I personally do every single day, or at the very least once a week when I plan out my week with the work that I'm going to do. Ask yourself what the hardest thing you have to do is, and then do that first. And now, my reasoning for this is that presumably the first thing that you do will be given most of your energy. So, that 50-page article, that took a lot of energy. And I wasn't going to do that all in one sitting, but I knew that it was going to take the longest amount of time, so I started with it. Because as the day goes on, your energy is going to drop. That's just natural. So, as your energy drops throughout the day, doesn't it make sense that the level of difficulty of the work that you're doing should also drop accordingly? You know, if you have to read a 50-page article and you want to get it done in a day, start with that first 5 pages or 10 pages or whatever, and then move on to something else. And then by the end of the night, you'll think to yourself, gosh, I'm still not done with this work. But when you look and see what you have to do, all it is one discussion post and 5 other pages to read, instead of, okay, I'm finished with everything, but now I have to read a 50-page article. So, really thinking about where your energy is going and how your energy is going has really helped me. Um, any questions or comments on either of these things, any of these 4 things?
Um, Two things came up for me. One, when you were talking about little by little, I was thinking about the previous slide when you were mentioning organization. And I think that those can kind of go hand in hand. One of them is more mindset, the other one is an action. So the mindset being little by little, but the action is like write it down little by little too. Because sometimes for myself, even, I'll make my to-do list and it just looks so overwhelming. But if I break it down even smaller, then I'm like, all right, it looks bigger, but it's actually more digestible because I can check off things more frequently. So that's just a tip that's worked for me. And then the other part was the last one about doing the hardest thing first. I've heard some different ways of interpreting this. This is really different from myself personally, but a lot of students I've worked with actually have more energy and focus at nighttime than they do in the first thing in the morning. And while I'm not like that, I respect that perspective. And so if that's the case, I think that that final bullet is do the hardest thing you have to get done first in your study session. So if your study session is at night, that's fine if it works for you, but still tackle the hardest thing first because you're still probably going to lose energy as you continue studying. So just kind of a nuance to that one.
That's a good point because I am not a morning person by any means. So, like, it will take me at least an hour of being awake before I can even think about doing, schoolwork of any kind. So, that's definitely a good point to make. Acknowledge, when are you most energized to do something? And if that for some people is at night, good for them. Like, study at night, do what works for you. And that's another thing. I didn't put it in this presentation, but I like to talk about it in the packs because I think I'm a firm believer that your education should be personal for you. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. Like some people, for example, like study groups. I'm more of an introvert kind of person myself, so I don't study in groups, but I study like that article I just said, 50 pages, 5 at a time. And while some people can sit there and do it, that is not how I do it. Make your education your own. And Ali, something that you said that I thought of was when you break down into a to-do list into smaller pieces like that, you get the satisfaction of checking off more things than you would if you were to just check off one big thing every couple hours, you know? So like, that's a good point to have made. Um, all right, what do we have next? Okay, last 2 before some resources. Treat yourself. That is a huge thing. And that is like not just me personally saying that as somebody who treats himself often, but that is something that, studies show that rewarding yourself is good not only for you mentally, but academically and externally. You're going to see better results when you treat yourself with, the respect that you deserve for getting the work done. So like give yourself that snack or that game time that you've been denying yourself because you have all this work to do. Don't let it become a distraction, obviously. Once again, same thing with comfort. There's a fine line there that you have to reflect on and determine where it is for you. But good work deserves a reward. And if you can't reward yourself, then really you're kind of holding yourself back. So allow yourself to be treated, but don't allow yourself, don't treat yourself to procrastination. That would be my advice with that, you know, because I am the kind of person who will say, okay, I've just read 10 pages. I'm going to go on YouTube for a second. And then an hour later, I'm still there. You know, that is like my thing. I go down the YouTube rabbit hole and I end up watching videos that I don't even know how I got to. So don't let it become procrastination, but do reward yourself. And then finally, being accountable. Um, some suggestions that I've read up on, heard about, you know, used myself, you know, ask a friend to make sure that you're meeting deadlines, you know, set reminders for yourself, have them, you know, send you little updates on how they're doing, send them updates on what you're doing. I, for one, I call one of my friends about every other day, maybe every 2 days, and we talk about school. And I always ask, you know, how are you doing? Like, how's it going this week? And we'll talk about it. And it's not like, you know, a boring conversation that you have to have. Like we vent and we, you know, get it all out there. And it really is, you know, beneficial, but at the same time, it does hold us accountable because when you tell somebody like, yeah, I have this huge paper due at the end of the week and I am just not looking forward to doing it. Then somebody else knows that you've got to do that. So your ability to procrastinate is now intertwined with somebody else's perception of how you do work. So, like with my friend, for example, I will specifically say that stuff like, yeah, my goal for this week, I want to watch these lectures today. I'm going to do the readings tomorrow, and then I'm going to do the assignments on Thursday. And then a couple days will go by, we'll talk, and he'll be like, how's school going? Did you like finish all that stuff? And I'll be like, no, I'm like sort of there, whatever, and just sort of update each other. Schoolwork and deadlines do not have to be something you conquer alone. It's good to use your social support to ensure your success. I mean, obviously, like if you're in the same class as somebody, don't cheat. I mean, that is obviously never okay, but using your social surroundings, your friends, anything that you have, you know, at your disposal can benefit you more than just socially. It can also help academically. Anything on either of these before we get into some resources?
I wanted to dig in a little bit. And so it's kind of related to these, but kind of just related to everything. Procrastination, I feel like is such like a personal phenomenon. Like, even though it's so relatable, it looks different. And even for yourself, Chris, you were identifying it like, okay, so for me, it's YouTube. This is the problem. It still happens and, you know, I work through it, but I know what my trigger is. I'm kind of curious for Jesse, if you're comfortable sharing, what does procrastination look like for you?
It can be an entire, like a lot. So I can start out with a plan for that day, and very, very similar to what Chris was saying, I'll say, you know, I did X, Y, and Z. Now I'm gonna relax, watch some YouTube or, you know, play a game or whatnot. And then, like you said, that 5, 10, 30 minutes turns into an hour to 2 hours, and it's like, whoa. And I have to like kind of reel myself in and like come back to reality and say, okay, I still have to finish, you know, these 3 things or 2 things or whatnot before the day finishes. Just kind of like for that self-satisfaction.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if something is going really well and you're enjoying it, why your brain's telling you, well, why would I do something that I maybe won't enjoy as much? For sure. Um, I guess the real trick there is how you can tweak that so that you kind of trick your brain into, you know, being able to pick up the thing again and move on. I know some people, even for procrastination, they don't have the problem you do have. Their problem is getting started even. And so it's not that they are rewarding themselves even to that point. They just never start in the first place. So
Mhm.
I think that that's often step one is like, hold on, what does procrastination look like for me? And what part is actually sabotaging my success? And once you can figure that out, that's when you can start to create a plan to kind of work around.
Good points. Like I just thought of something as both of you were talking. I should have put it in here, but sleep is such a huge part of time management, at least for me, that I know we have separate time management resources, and sleep is mentioned in literally every single one of them. A lot of things that people think is that, oh, I slept, 10 hours yesterday and I didn't get as much work done as I needed to. Okay, it's fine. Like, treat yourself to sleep. Make sure that you're being healthy. And also, another thing is naps. Like, it's okay to take a nap in the middle of the day. That is something I have to tell myself all the time. As soon as I get off work at noon or 5 or whatever it happens to be that day, if I'm feeling too tired to work, I won't feel bad about it. I used to, and I would think, oh, I really should get this stuff going. But sleep is not like, it can be a distraction. I mean, if you take a 3-hour nap, that's, you know, sort of getting in the way. But take a 30-minute nap. That's usually what I do, 30 minutes. And then I'm recharged. I can do stuff, but take care of your body too. Like, that is one last thing I wanted to just put in there because I think that's important.
I was just going to add in with a lot of the rewards that we're talking about. I think the factor that's coming up a lot is how much to indulge in them. And the big factor with procrastination is that time. How much time putting off? How much time am I indulging? How hard it is to overcome that, but also how easy it is to set yourself up for success, right? Like, so we all have phones, set a timer, right? What else could we think of? Like, maybe you have somebody, that accountability piece, check in on you. Hey, I'm gonna go take a nap. Can you wake me up in 30 minutes? There's all these different tips that you're presenting to us, Chris, that can like kind of tie together and ultimately support us to reach that goal and overcome that procrastination.
I definitely agree with the like napping throughout the day, like when necessary, because for me, when I don't get like the proper sleep at night and say I start an assignment midday, and then when I get sleepy, instead of like taking that nap and jumping back into it, my brain tends to turn off. So I end up doing more procrastination, and that kind of like is counterproductive to the entire process. And so I really do agree with like the whole napping when necessary.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm glad you say that because that is, you know, something that people need to hear. I used to be the kind of person that was like, no, you literally had 8 hours of sleep last night. Like, you shouldn't be tired. Just do work. And now I'm like, you know what? I don't have any deadlines that are happening within the next half hour. I'm gonna take a nap, and it is okay. So that is good to hear. Okay, so next I have a couple slides about some resources. So I am going to see, my presenter notes are sort of like getting in the way, so I'm going to minimize this. Okay, can I click on these? I should be able to. Can you see this, or is it still at the presentation?
We're good. You can see it.
You can see it. Okay, so I'm not going to go over these like in depth because these are all extensive web pages, but Ferris State University has a great page that I sort of just skimmed. I didn't read the whole thing, but there are a lot of things that this particular presentation doesn't go over like in the slides, but I wanted to put this stuff in here because it's so important. So like, for example, perfectionism. I used to be such a perfectionist, and now I'm like, I'm not perfect and it's okay. But that doesn't mean I can't get the job done, just in a different way than I thought I wanted to. So this is, there are just some great stuff in here that I highly recommend looking into. Um,
I'm going to chime in really quick
yeah,
that I actually think that this list here is the key to so many students' procrastination hurdles. And the reason is a lot of what we've been talking about with Jesse and Chris, you too, is just like identifying why is the procrastination happening in the first place? And then what am I going to do? And all of these things are reasons why it could be happening. One of them up there was about poor reading. If you have a hard time reading long texts, then of course you're going to procrastinate it. Like we're programmed that way as humans to avoid things that are difficult. But if you know that reading's hard, then you can start to figure out, well, what can make it easier for me? And I don't have that answer for you because we're all different, but I challenge you that if you're struggling with procrastination, start with the why, and here's some great reasons, and then go from there and build your plan.
Yes, I think Denise sent this to me a couple, maybe last week, I think, I'm not sure. Somebody sent it to me, and I skimmed it and I was like, this is so relatable. You know, this is definitely going in the presentation. So this is here. Okay. This next one, the Center for Clinical Intervention. This is one that I found myself. This has actual like worksheets about procrastination that you can do, information sheets about it, that each one of these are different things. Developing an action plan, you know, going back to being organized, breaking things down little by little, like it's all sort of connected. And so there are actual resources that are present on this website. So this is, once again, the Center for Clinical Interventions. This is, I think this is, yeah, Australia. So, I mean, you can get these resources from everywhere. It's not that we have to remain local to conquer our procrastination, but I recommend looking into this stuff. I haven't actually looked at any of this stuff myself, in depth, I should say, but it does look recent and relevant. So that is there. Simon Fraser University also had a similar page to Ferris State. This has other links. They have videos, other procrastination information. They have strategies. These are all links to more videos, and it's pretty extensive. Online procrastination is something that I wanted to like highlight here. I once again have not looked through all of these individually, but I think that really acknowledging how procrastination in an online format is different from in a physical learning environment can be something, you know, for reflective thought. So there are resources there. And then another website that I found was called Mind Tools. This looks a little more reader friendly. There's a video. And once again, more strategies, resources. What I liked about this page was that they have actual steps. So, like, if all of these tips and tricks and resources seem overwhelming, this one in particular has steps that you can take out, like in a chronological order, and conquer it. So that is what I liked about this one. I went through a lot of these websites looking at these resources, but I wanted to pick ones that like each had a different thing, you know, because I thought it would be sort of counterproductive to just throw a bunch of the same stuff at you. So the key with this one is the steps. That is what I particularly liked. That was the last one on that page. Let me go to the next one. Okay, oh, this is peer advising. Okay, so I put our peer advising stuff on here also because procrastination is not just something that you recognize, evaluate, develop a plan, boom, it's done. You know, part of it is also relapsing. Like you might develop a plan, it might work for a week, and then the next week, you know, you have to work overtime or whatever, something comes up, family emergency, whatever it is, and suddenly your plan to procrastinate falls through. So it doesn't need to be something that you handle alone. We as peer advisors are here to like help you with this. So our contact information is here, our email's here, the link to our website is here, which also has a contact form on it now. And we're also on drop-ins during our shifts. So this is a link to our virtual front desk where you can hop right on in, talk with somebody, assuming that a peer advisor is working at that time. Our schedule is also on the website, so that is available as well. So you don't have to just like, you know, take a shot in the dark and hope somebody's working. You can actually plan around it. But yeah, we as peer advisors are here to help you with that, and we want to be able to. So let me see. What is my next one? Oh, this is the link to the slides. Okay. So this, like I said before, I wanted to put this in here so that if anybody wants to see this, you can. I think it's a U of M link, so you have to be signed in with your U of M stuff, so it's not like a public thing, but I think I can probably change that. But this is the link to it so that you can have access to all those hyperlinks that I just went through and our contact information and all that stuff. But other than that, that is the end of the presentation and the resources that I had in here. Any questions, comments, if we want to talk more about other time management stuff, or even if things are unrelated, you just want to talk about, what do we have?
Yeah, I'll let Jesse kind of expand on that in a second. I wanted to highlight my favorite procrastination resource, and it might have been a little too long for today's conversation, but I can't recommend it enough if you want to be both entertained and also maybe grab some useful, what's the word I'm looking for? Analogies, probably. So there's this TED Talk, and it's called Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator. I don't know if Chris or Jesse, you've heard of it or you've watched it. Hilarious TED Talk, like probably one of the funniest ones I've seen. And it's going to be really relatable. I can promise that because it's from a procrastinator standpoint. So I'm going to put that link in the chat just in case, Jesse, you were curious about it. If anybody who's watching this wants to just Google Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator, I can guarantee it'll come up. And yeah, I think that will be interesting.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that TED Talk at least twice. I find it quite hilarious and relatable too.
Yeah, TED
Agreed.
Talks are great. I have watched, that sounds familiar. I can't remember if I've watched it, but it really does sound familiar. But I'll have to give that a look too, because that would be a great link to have somewhere.
Yeah, I remember I first saw it at a professional conference, and it's kind of a funny video to watch at a professional conference. But hey, whatever's helpful, I'm there for. So.
Right, exactly, exactly. Any other questions, comments, anything about peer advising in general, procrastination, time management, any of it that we want to go over?
I'll just add that I think, this was referenced at the beginning of the presentation, but yeah, we do these crash courses as part of PALS throughout the every semester, and we have a lot of topics that are relevant to students' experiences during the point in the semester that we're in. So as we're looking ahead to February, we're kind of getting further into the semester, and we've got some relevant topics. So if you're curious what's going on or what we might be covering next, you can contact us, and these are free and available for students to take part in. So we look forward to seeing you there.
Also, one last
Great,
thing
thank you.
Sorry about that, I didn't mean to interrupt you. One last thing I wanted to add.
Very fine.
Are we recording, Ali, are we recording attendance still?
Not necessarily attendance, but we do have the ticket out the door activity if Jesse can
right.
do that for us. And one other thing that I wanted to promote is that I don't know, Jesse, or anybody else who might be watching this, if you're part of the Talent Gateway, but there is an opportunity to get some Talent Gateway points by one, attending a workshop, and two, completing a challenge specifically about procrastination, and then doing the reflection that goes with it. There's an article. Wanted to highlight that so that, again, if you're part of Talent Gateway, you want to hop onto the Canvas and get credit for today's workshop, but also complete that procrastination challenge. Is super relevant to our conversation.
Yes, I had totally forgotten about that, so thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I am getting the, Ali, did you send me the ticket out the door stuff as an email?
I don't remember. I can put that link in the chat, and Jesse, if you want to go ahead and just click that link and fill it out. I think it's just 2 questions, and we really appreciate the feedback.
Okay, yeah. Oh, did you put it in the chat? Um, okay. All right, yeah. I was looking for it and I'm like, what? Where? I like literally looked at it earlier and I copy and pasted it somewhere and then I don't know what I did with it. Um,
It's all good. We got it.
oh, I see it. Okay. Okay. It's the Qualtrics one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that show up okay in the chat?
Oh, yeah. I'm not even looking at it. It's there. Okay. Um, all right. Uh, does the can that be completed at any time, or like does it need to be completed before we end the meeting, Ali? I am not totally sure. Like, if I end the meeting, will it go away? Um,
So yeah, I think the chat will probably go away. But Jesse, if you don't want to fill out right this exact minute, you can go ahead and click the link and open it up in a tab. We would appreciate the feedback by the end of the day if possible. It's super short and sweet. But otherwise, in the last few minutes here, if you do have any other questions or if there's a certain, I don't know, situation that we can help you work through, happy to do that in this last little bit.
Thank you. I actually did, click on the link so that we would have, we'll fill it out just, but yes, definitely.
Sounds good.
all right. Well, if that is all, then um, thank you, Jesse, for coming. I think this was great. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I hope that anybody watching is finding this stuff useful and helpful. And once again, feel free to contact the Peer Advising Office. We are always here, and we hope to have more people at future PACs and to work with people. So if that is it, then I think we are all set. I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see you guys all later.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks for coming, Jesse.
Thank you for having it.
Mhm.